Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is January 16th of 2025, and this is a hearing conducted by the Tennessee Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission to consider the matter of Heath Gunter. This is Administrative Procedures Division docket number 12.40-244-307A. My name is Administrative Judge Stephanie Bergmeyer. I've been assigned to preside over this hearing with the Secretary of State's office. We have Mr. Gary Humble here for Sheriff Heath Gunter. And we have Counsel Dennis Gregory and Mary Beth Measley representing the Department of Commerce and Insurance in this matter. Our first initial matter for us to discuss is a petition for disqualification of Commissioner Parton. And that was filed by Sheriff Gunter in this case, the respondent. Commissioner Parton, have you seen or reviewed the petition for disqualification?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Humble, do you have a copy of that petition?
I don't know that I do, to be honest with you. It'd probably take me a minute to look.
Okay. Would you like to make oral argument on your petition, or would you like for Commissioner Parton to read the petition that was filed?
I think it'd be better for him to read it than for me to really try to condense it.
Okay.
I think it's important that, that it be fully understood and that all of it that it's communicated to him.
Okay.
Your Honor, we have a copy of that available if Counsel Gregory would be able to just bring his laptop over to Commissioner Parton.
Read electronically in PDF.
That would be fine. Thank you. So before you review that, Commissioner Parton, let me give you the law. As the judge, it is my duty to inform you of the law applicable to this case. In the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act, Tennessee Code Annotated Section 4-5-302A provides that any administrative judge, hearing officer, or agency member shall be subject to disqualification for bias, prejudice, interest, or any other cause provided in this chapter, or for any cause for which a judge may be disqualified. If you have any questions on that statute and what it provides, please let me know. Otherwise, the law does say that you make the decision on whether to recuse yourself from sitting as a commission member in this case, and that you should state the facts and reasons for your determination when you're ready. Please take your time to review the petition.
Thank you.
While he is reviewing that petition, there was a supplement filed last week. I believe that included more, an additional transcript, if he would be provided that as well. Thank you.
I'll pull that one up, Your Honor.
Thank you.
This is all. You might not, I might have to pull one. Hold it. Not too. Yeah.
Your Honor, I've reviewed the motion.
After reviewing the petition and the supplement that was filed, Commissioner Parton, do you recuse yourselves from sitting as a member of the commission in this hearing?
No,
Okay. What are the facts and reasons for your determination?
well, my determination on that is yes, I reviewed the motion that was filed. There was an affidavit in there from a former employee that was seeking employment there. There is pieces of that affidavit that are true, and I'm prepared to address any number of line items in that if necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Parton.
Thank you.
Your Honor, if I might, my understanding was that the commissioner was going to abstain from voting originally, but was reserving the right to ask questions. Is he gonna intend to vote, or just ask questions? Could I have some clarification, please?
Yes. So Commissioner Parton, is it your determination to recuse yourself for any part of our hearing today?
No,
Your Honor, I would just note that while it is the commissioner's decision at this stage, that his decision is subject to appellate review in the Chancery Court. So I just state that for the record. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, we have resolved the first issue. Commissioner Parton, please, we have one more issue to handle. And so please go join the commission outside and I'll call you back in when we're ready to reconvene with the commission to determine the hearing. Thank you. Another preliminary matter for us to discuss before we begin the hearing with the commission was there was a request for 2 special charges that were filed in advance of the hearing today. We did have a pre-hearing conference yesterday, and I told the parties my ruling that I would deny the request to include special charge number 1 in my board charges, commission charges. I felt that the request was outside the plain language of the statute and regulations that were applicable in this case. As far as special charge number 2, that was unopposed by the department, I will include the charge on the first page, the first paragraph of that special charge number 2, that there is a charge in the department's notice of hearing and charges that the respondent failed to maintain good moral character by perpetuating a pattern of false statements on at least 3 separate occasions to the post-commission, and that because the respondent is currently certified, he does not have the burden to prove his good moral character. Rather, it is the petitioner that must prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the respondent does not have good moral character because he has made a pattern of false statements. I am denying the remaining proposed special charge on page 2 because it was premised on the first charge. And I have denied the first charge. And additionally, I find the request to define pattern in Black's Law Dictionary is not necessary and that the plain language can be applied. So those are my rulings on the special charges. If the parties would like to address that now, we may.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I might, very briefly, I just would like a clarification on the denial on the special charge number 1. It's the court's interpretation of the law that the statement false statements don't have to be material. In addition to not being knowing, they don't have to be material, and they can also be false even if they're literally true. And I just want to clarify, because sometimes things get messed up in the, with the phone, it's a little hard, and just I want to preserve the record that specifically you're denying everything in that charge, not just the definition of false.
Yes, I am denying everything in that charge under my determination that it goes outside the plain language of the statute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would the parties like to address anything else on the special charges request?
Not for the department.
Okay. Are there any other preliminary issues for us to discuss before the commission returns?
Not for the respondent, Your Honor.
Neither for the department.
Okay. Well, we will take a short recess and let the commission come back in and reconvene. And I will call us back into session when we are all back. Thank you. Better run to the bathroom. Thank you. Okay.
Say that. Oh, okay.
Well, I'm gonna have to start subscribing to the newspaper.
My novel.
Well, you can be like,
I've got a lot of chapters.
Terry Ashrow.
Yeah, that's what I told Ash. I said, you need to have.
Gave me a copy. Sign
Yeah,
a copy.
I was like, Ash.
I haven't read it yet. I can just, you tell me they're waiting to approve.
Your colors.
I think there'll be some,
I've got to go.
usually not.
Oh, really? Yeah. I got to sit in the locust in Clark. It's games. Yeah.
He's reading. Happy Valentine's Day.
So everybody knows where we're in recess, the box.
Oh, 15 minutes.
We're so.
See if that thing gains any traction or it dies. I suspect it will probably die. Website yet, but you see that, so
The filings were.
Then you can just make a.
I like to get just try.
So.
Transfer fee, that register details. And then for some. There.
I didn't see that on the.
Solid waste management.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
There is.
So I saw. So what about just kind of extra to fall? It's, you know, all waste management and associated costs. And it. General. I'm ready, there's a. You know, It's like.
Oh, do you?
I got that.
Storage.
It's going to be part of the commission and we'll do it.
It's like.
Get here and then tell me.
All the massive beasts. I'm looking at the data. Yeah. Say it, we're used to getting this. Yeah, every county. We're gonna go down that route. We can put the rules in. Marijuana, I'm saying, forget this, forget that, just.
No, we're not.
Handling. So. Said, yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, y'all out here. Like, it's like.
I told our team.
Make sure.
They lost. Somebody needs to.
Gary got that working.
Black bottoms, the bill bottoms.
That's catching.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's where they start everything. They start everything.
Well, it's not happening.
We'll just review. What we'll do is we'll.
Yeah, usually. Now, the good thing is stuff starts watching.
Well, I was in attack.
State.
What that's crazy.
Yeah. He's still got, we still got some deep stuff, but he has to do things honest. He did a lot of towers, radio towers.
I'm going next door.
He doesn't have big cranes.
They would have.
$74-year-old.
Commission members, we are waiting for Senator Jackson to be able to arrive, so feel free to get up and move around freely until we actually begin the hearing itself. Thank you. Okay, we are ready to convene this post-commission. For the record, it is January 16th of 2025. This is a hearing conducted by the Tennessee Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission to consider the matter of Keith Gunter. This is APD docket number 12.40-244307A. I'm Stephanie Bergmeyer. I've been assigned by the Secretary of State to serve as administrative judge at this hearing with the Post Commission. Mr. Gary Humble represents the respondent, Sheriff Heath Gunter. Counsel Dennis Gregory and Mary Beth Measley represent the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance in this case. So as the judge who sits with the Post Commission, I will make all rulings regarding the order of proceedings, the admissibility of evidence, questions of law under the authority granted to me by the Tennessee Uniform Administrative Procedures Act. However, I will not participate in determining the findings of fact and conclusions of law or the ultimate decision that this commission may reach today. At this time, I will now ask for the chairperson of the commission to introduce themselves.
And Job Vice Chair, Gary Carter.
Thank you. And now I will ask for all the commission members to introduce themselves for the record, starting with Commissioner Parton.
Commissioner Chad Parker.
Commissioner Jared Jeffers.
Commissioner Brian Wright. Commissioner Don Green.
Commissioner Jonathan Beverly.
Commissioner Lacey Wilbur.
Commissioner Ed Jackson.
Commissioner Dale Lane.
Thank you, Commissioner Lane. All right, Mr. Chairman, is there a quorum of this commission today?
No, we have four.
Thank you.
All post commissioners have previously agreed to recuse themselves from any vote that will constitute a conflict of interest. The most obvious of these would include issues that would involve our own departments or some we know personally. Because we have already agreed to this, it should be noted that on routine matters, it will be assumed non-verbally that these commissioners have abstained from that vote. In bigger, more controversial issues that may have a more overt conflict of interest, it may have an appearance of impropriety. Those applicable commissioners will still verbally abstain from these votes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, commission members, please bear in mind the law requires you to disclose on the record any outside knowledge of this case or any communications you've had about this case with the parties, whether written, verbal, or otherwise. Does any commissioner have anything that they need to disclose for the record? Okay. Before we begin the hearing itself, I believe the parties have a preliminary issue to discuss with the commissioners.
Attorney Mary Beth Measley for the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance. We're here in the matter of Heath Gunter. Legal has worked diligently with Sheriff Gunter's counsel to determine the substantive issues in this case. In October of 2023, the commission referred this matter to a formal hearing. The foundation of that request was that Sheriff Gunter had provided false information to the Post Commission, worked uncertified officers and SROs, and that the Grundy County Sheriff's Office had failed to accurately maintain and update ACADIS records. Since that time, the Grundy County Sheriff's Office has hired and trained a new GDI, Ms. Tracy Brown, and the ACADIS reporting issues have been resolved. To our knowledge, there are no longer any uncertified officers working in an uncertified capacity in Sheriff Gunter's office. Sheriff Gunter has not appeared in front of the Post Commission for any certification or ACADIS related issues since October 2023. The legal division has worked with Sheriff Gunter's attorney to work out the following proposed settlement agreement where this matter would be closed upon approval by the commission. Sheriff Gunter will admit to the following violations of post rules: that respondent employed individuals who were not in possession of a post certification in a law enforcement capacity, that is to prevent possible criminal activity at Grundy County Schools in the spring of 2023. Sheriff Gunter will also admit that his office under his supervision failed to accurately maintain and update ACADIS records, the ACADIS records management system from September of 2022 to October of 2023. Sheriff Gunter would agree to the following terms of settlement. Sheriff Gunter would continue to submit weekly updates to post investigators for a period of 6 months, effective today's date, January 16th of 2025. Sheriff Gunter will forego receipt of his salary supplement for a period of 2 years. Sheriff Gunter will work with post staff to identify and attend a post-approved leadership and organizational class and attend said class within 6 months of this agreement. Sheriff Gunter has also additionally volunteered to attend ACADIS training with post staff at the next offered opportunity within the first 6 months. If the commission approves this matter, we will not move forward with the hearing today, and the matter of TDCI versus Heath Gunter would be closed. Thank you.
A decision of this commission must be made by majority vote. And I will now leave you to deliberate this proposed agreement.
Commissioner Green, I have a question. If he fails to follow any of those stipulated agreements, what would be the consequences?
We would then start a new case against Sheriff Gunter for violation of an agreed order with the post commission, but we would not reopen past matters.
Would it be where he would, again, this is Commissioner Green, would it be where he would go ahead and voluntarily submit his decertification?
That's not the part of the agreement. But if there were a violation of the agreed order, we would bring it to the commission to consider a new potential decertification action.
Commissioner Wright, is there a copy of the agreement in the iPad or one that can be distributed for us to view on?
No, sir, we have a draft, but it's basically just my notes from today. We wanted to run it by the commission before putting signatures on anything, just in case you guys had any modifications or potential thoughts on the order.
Happy heard on this.
Attorney Gary Humble would like to speak as well. And if you guys have questions for our post investigators, or is Ms. Brown available?
Yes.
Or Ms. Brown, those people are all available.
Well, good morning. I know y'all are probably not too interested in hearing from a lawyer, but so I'll keep it brief. I just want to say that it's our interpretation of the agreement that basically the sheriff has to comply with this in order to maintain his certification. And that if he doesn't comply with the agreement, then there's not going to be an argument from us about it. But the sheriff has done everything he was supposed to do it's been 15 months now. And the CADIS has been running great. He's been in his office has been in weekly communication with Investigator Cantrell. It's our understanding that that's been very smooth. I would also note that if we were to have a hearing on this matter, the first witnesses that we would call would be two ladies that work for the Post Commission, Lakita and Cassia Phillips and Lakita Taylor. And they would say that as far as the CADIS has gone for the last 13 months, that has been fantastic. That Tracy Brown, who's been responsible for that, has done a phenomenal job. And that's her word, phenomenal. And Maribeth nicely participated in the interview when we talked to him, while we were preparing for the hearing. So the sheriff has got a really strong track record. And I would just remind the commission that really he had to start from scratch. He had 23 people leave and he had 3 people when he started. And we asked for your understanding. He made mistakes. He admits it. Acatus was screwed up. The people that were involved in that, he's had a number of personnel changes. The people like Brandon King that were involved in both the Acatus and some of the other issues that came up, he's no longer with the sheriff's office. So sheriff is getting his organization. He's got it in good shape. Y'all have not heard from him in 13 months. And we feel like that's been a fairly substantial probationary period in which if there had been problems, you'd have been made aware of it. Post council, I think, is in agreement with this, and certainly they're in agreement with the proposed resolution. But in our view, if the sheriff doesn't comply with this, then that would be grounds for decertification. But we're confident that the sheriff is going to comply. He admits he made mistakes. When he was in here back in, I think it was August, his first appearance, he told y'all that he was asked about SR, having uncertified officers at the school after the national shooting, and he admitted it. And he admits it now. He did that. He found out he should not have done it, and that has not been an issue. So the sheriff would respectfully ask you to consider this agreement, consider the track record, the circumstances, and that he's willing to do this and enter into it in good faith. And even the Acatus idea was his idea because it's been such a problem. He wants to make sure that he understands it. And like a captain of the ship being, knowing everything that's going on in your organization. So he's got a good organization, and we humbly and respectfully ask you to vote to approve this agreement. Thank you.
It's Commissioner Green again. Since this has not been formally voted on or passed, and the attorneys kind of stipulated that they wouldn't oppose decertification if you failed to meet these requirements, could we add that to the agreement that failure to do this, he would voluntarily give up his certification?
Mr. Chairman, Mayor Betty Nicely, is that something that Mr. Humble, you guys would be acceptable in the terms?
Sure.
Then I would like to see that.
Commissioner Wright, so it was October of 2023 when we made the motion to move this to a full trial.
Yes, sir.
It seems to me, just talk us out a little bit, it seems to me like the defense at this point is, well, since y'all went that far to move me to a full trial, I've done good. Prior to that time period, it's sad the fact that we had to go to a full trial to basically get the attention of Grundy County Sheriff that this stuff had to be done. And I think that's pretty much what I'm looking at as defense is, since y'all moved me to a full trial, ain't heard anything out of Grundy County. So just want to throw that out there.
Commissioner Beverly, I guess a question for the post investigator would be appropriate at this point.
Yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Investigator Cantrell. What was the question again?
Speaking of the day that the post commission located an uncertified deputy working inside the school, when you spoke with Sheriff Gunther, what happened that day?
Investigator Craig and Director Bello were the ones that went to the school and saw the officer there. Supervisor Cooper and myself were at the sheriff's office with the sheriffs while they were at the school. And during the conversation, he had made it clear to us that he had received a phone call from the school saying that Post was at the school. Other than that, there wasn't really a whole lot talked about that day on that part of it.
Was it ever claimed that, or denial that he did not have uncertified deputies working alone? Or was that admission made pretty quickly?
I don't recall him admitting to us that day that he had any non-certified officers working solo.
Mr. Chairman. In the August of 2023 meeting, the sheriff did take accountability for working uncertified SROs and told the commission that day. I'm not sure, I wasn't there, but I've reviewed the transcripts and that was an accurate reflection of his taking accountability.
Commissioner Beverly, and thank you. But my question was kind of when it happened, was it, we found it through further investigation, or was it an immediate, hey, I had to do what I had to do, this is what's going on, or was there some potential deceit there to say, no, it didn't happen, and then once we caught them, well, yes, it actually did. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And
At the time that we paid the visit there, we did know that Deputy Dykes was not certified and that he was employed by the sheriff's office. I had received phone calls prior to our visit saying that he was actually working as an SRO by himself. Multiple people called me and told me that they saw him directing traffic out in the parking lot in the mornings and afternoons. He was seen basically doing law enforcement duties at the school areas.
was that the only instance of a reported uncertified deputy working at Grundy County?
No.
I have a question too. How many visits did we have, the post investigators have, where we found violations of post rules?
I know there was at least 3 times that we had been there. The first one was prior to me coming to post. Director Bello and Director Kane went on, I believe it was September 8th, 2022. To the best of my knowledge, it was due to similar complaints of alleged non-certified officers working solo. I do know that there was a list left with the sheriff of deficiencies as far as ACADIS, stuff that they were not documenting. When we went in May, we left a list and the sheriff was taking notes the whole time we were there. And then there was a third time where Director Bello, Ms. Taylor, and I believe Ms. Phillips went to help with the ACADIS stuff.
So there were 3 visits, recurring visits, where we continued to have violations of post rules.
To my knowledge, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson, I have a question. What is the status of the staff of the Grundy County Sheriff's Department now? Do they have full staff or people there that they need, the certified people? So I just wanted to just check on that.
I don't know if they have anybody working right now that's not certified. I know recently they had, I believe it was 3 corrections officers that transferred over to patrol and were in the academy. They were split up, I believe, where 1 or 2 were coming to Toledo and 1 or 2 were going to Cleveland State.
Thank you.
Mr. Lane, I've got a question for you as well. At any point, once this was discovered, did anybody in the command staff, after they were confronted with this, attempt to deceive post investigators?
I don't know if it was the intention, but there were false statements made to the commission after it was brought to the commission's attention that there were deficiencies and non-certified officers working solo.
Okay, thank you. Council, just to be clear, could you read out the proposal one more time?
Yes, sir. The legal division has worked with Sheriff Gunter's attorney to work out the following proposed settlement agreement, where this matter would be closed upon approval of the commission. That the Sheriff Gunter will admit to the following violations of post rules. That respondent employed individuals who were not in possession of a post certification in a law enforcement capacity, that is to prevent possible criminal activity at Grundy County schools in the spring of 2023. That respondent's office under respondent supervision failed to accurately maintain and update the ACADIS records management system from September of 2022 to October of 2023. Sheriff Gunter would agree to the following terms of settlement. Sheriff Gunter will continue to submit weekly updates to post investigators for a period of 6 months, effective January 16th of 2025. That's today's date. Sheriff Gunter would forego receipt of his salary supplement for a period of 2 years. Sheriff Gunter will work with post staff to identify and attend a post-approved leadership or organizational class and attend said class within 6 months of this agreement. Sheriff Gunter has additionally volunteered to personally attend an ACADIS training course within the first 6 months of this agreement. Sheriff Gunter, in this meeting, has agreed to, if there's a violation of this order, he would not maintain his post certification. If the commission approves this matter, we will not move forward with the hearing, and this matter would be closed.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wright, so if there's a violation of the order during the entire term of his being sheriff, then we're agreeing to surrender?
It would be if he does not do the things that we've listed. So
Correct.
the first 6 months for the reporting, and then receipt of salary supplement for 2 years, and then the first 6 months for those 2 classes.
Commissioner Beverly again. I just want to reiterate Commissioner Wright's point that it seems like this agreed order is just saying, hey, I made some mistakes, I've made it right, and haven't done anything in the past 15 months, but there was a great deal of issues that got us here today. And I'm not so sure that just an agreed surrender, if I don't comply, is enough at this point.
May I address the commission again?
Yes, you may. And if the department attorneys would like to make any additional statements afterwards, you'd be welcome to.
Thank you, Anna.
The sheriff is truly sorry for what happened, and he's not making any excuses, but it's important to remember that he started out with, he didn't even have email going when he started that office. And he had people that he had to rely on that frankly disappointed him and let him down. Obviously, I don't think anybody here really expects a sheriff to do the ACADIS himself. And of course, at some point, maybe he probably should have, but he does. He's tried to learn and improve. And this commission on a number of occasions said that they really wanted to help him and wanted him to succeed. And I strongly disagree with the Honorable Commissioner Wright about any suggestion that sort of the sheriff is playing games with anything. The sheriff is a very sincere person, and he's trying his best to do a good job for the people of Grundy County, to do the job in the right way. As he told you, he's a former Marine and Army, and in the Army for almost 20 plus years. And character and honesty are important to him. And I submit to you that if we were to have a hearing, a number of these things that you've heard would not be as clear cut as you might think they are. That there may have been some misunderstandings. And I suggest too that if you look at the notice of hearing and charges, some of the actual charges are really pretty weak, honestly. Like, I'll give you an example. One of the charges is the sheriff said it would take 14 to 30 days to fix the ACADIS problem. Well, he said that in August, and the truth is that some of the commissioners thought that he was being overly optimistic. Well, he was, but guess what? It was fixed in 60 days. It took him 60 instead of the 30. Because it's the agreement, and I think council will agree with this, that after really by the time we had the October meeting, no, end of September, Acatus was running strong. He had Tracy Brown in it. And so so a lot of the falsity that you're talking about was really a result of the not having the right people involved in Acatus. I mean, that's a substantial part of what caused him to be brought here back again and again. And any event, in conclusion, I just tell you that things are not always like they seem. You have not heard the evidence. You know, you've heard, pretty much we haven't had a chance to really present things. We haven't had a chance to cross-examine witnesses. And that's why people often enter into agreements. Things are just not always, you get one side of it. I mean, how many of you in your positions have had somebody come in and tell you, well, oh, this happened, and then you got into the facts, and well, it wasn't quite like that until you heard both sides of it. So in any event, please don't think, whatever you do, even if you, say, no, we're not going to do this agreement, don't think that the sheriff doesn't appreciate the gravity of the situation, and don't think that he didn't appreciate it from the get-go. This has been a miserable experience for him. He's not been able to sleep. He's a very sincere guy, and he's got a high school education. He doesn't have, an advanced degree, but he's a very well-meaning man, and he's made improvements. And we urge the commission to take that into account, and the fact that you have not heard about this, and we promise you that upon pain of losing his certification, that you're not going to have a problem, and that things are going like the voters of Grundy County wanted with him as sheriff, that it's getting well run and being run the way it's supposed to and in the right way. And I hope that answers your question, and forgive me if I've talked too much, but thank you very much.
Commissioner Lane, I've got a response to that. One, I appreciate the work that's been done to get to this point. My concern is, just like you just said, we haven't heard enough. I'm concerned. I'm not concerned about the administrative mistakes. What I'm concerned, was there an intent to deceive post investigators? Because we decertify police officers in this commission regularly, and doing everything we can to push our profession forward and make sure that we continue to maintain public trust. And so that would be my biggest concern. And I haven't heard enough here today to know whether or not we had somebody that was intentionally trying to deceive after we have identified these mistakes. Mistakes are mistakes, but intent has consequences. And so that's my position on it.
I appreciate that. And if I might just say that in making this agreement with us, and maybe I ought to let the post lawyers talk about it, but one of the things that they consider is the strength of the evidence. And obviously, if you've got a really strong case, then I was a federal prosecutor for 30 years, and I can tell you that if I had a strong case, somebody comes to me, they're going to know, this is what you deserve. This is what you should get. And we agree, the sheriff agrees 100%. I mean, truthfulness is really important. And you do not, if he lied to you, he deserves to be decertified. I mean, there is no argument about that. But honestly, we don't think that the commission can prove that he lied. We maintain he did not. And we think that there are good reasons to enter this settlement, that it's a fair and just settlement that takes into account the evidence as well as all the circumstances, because he admits he made mistakes. He's not coming in saying, oh, I didn't do anything here. I've got a lawyer, and we're going to tell you that everything's, roses and honey. But So we ask you to think about that in terms of how this thing gets to where we are today. That it's not, you know, you can have a hearing if you really want to decide, you know, if you want to get down in the nitty gritty, but basically that's what happens when you have these kinds of agreements, is it's a compromise. And those are the things that are considered to the strength of the evidence, certainly from our standpoint, and I'm sure from their standpoint as well. So we feel like we've actually, on the merits, we feel like we've got a strong case if you ever really heard it. And, but I understand, but we would ask you to consider this deal, this agreement. We think it's fair for both sides. It takes into account the uncertainties of proof, and also take into account the fact that the sheriff's kind of been living at the foot of the cross, as you can imagine, for the last 13 months with this. So it's not a question of just playing, you know, well, now they got me, so I need to do right. No. But anyway, do you have any more questions? Did I talk too much? Okay.
This is Commissioner Wilbur. I'm just talking to the commission. We
Thank you.
decertify on past behavior, not on promises of future good behavior. This predates my time on the commission, so I don't know what has happened. I don't know the facts. So I will be voting against the settlement. I just wanted to share my thoughts.
This is Commissioner Green. And I agree with Commissioner Wright that we went through several meetings where we were told one thing and the investigators provided information that was contrary to what the sheriff said. So I don't know about intent, but I know that we had issues that continued to surface that brought us to here today. We also had the issue of, as you said, we don't necessarily want to look at what he's done now as to why we are here today. So what those findings are. But I guess for us to move forward, we have to take a vote on the settlement agreement. So would it be appropriate to take a motion?
Yes, certainly. One thing I do want to ensure is I'd let Mr. Humbles speak for the respondent. If the department has anything further they'd like to say before your vote, I would like to give him that option.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Then I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion. We can have discussion afterwards, but I'll make a motion that we approve the settlement so we can move forward.
Motion, do I have a second?
I'll make a second. Commissioner Jeffers.
All in favor to make a motion?
Can we have a discussion? Let's go session first, Mr. Chairman.
My apologies.
Commissioner Wright, I would be voting no on the motion as the settlement stands now. My question is there anything that can be added to the settlement order that would get us to where we'd be able to accept it? Reflecting my time back, I do remember that there was some deception and stuff, and that's what got us more here than anything. But is there anything that we could add to this settlement to get it over the finish line for us? And it may not be, because the deception part seems to be what's on most people's mind of what's holding up. And I remember what was most concerning to me was the uncertified officers inside the school system. I don't remember the exact reasoning on what was there. I've spent many days since then, but and obviously don't take this as part of the testimony of any investigator, but it sounded like at the time he just went in and used the restroom or something. That was why he was in the school. There was definitely some deception there involved. But would it be that we could add to this settlement that if there are ever any future instances of uncertified officers being in public schools, working the road by themselves, anything of that nature, that would also go to immediate decertification or surrender of post certification? I want to give them some credit for what the things that they've done and where we've gotten to, and try to be as least disruptive to Grundy County as possible. So I guess that's where we gotta weigh in deception versus, is there anything that we can add? And this order may go through as stands based on the vote, but just throwing that out there. Commissioner Beverly, I agree. I think that'd be a good thing to add. Like I said, I share that it was deception is really what led me here. Personally, I would like to see a potential suspension of post certification until those terms are met. That now puts it on the respondent to see how serious we as a commission take this, along with the additional criteria that if you fail to meet these standards, it is a surrender of your post certificate. I feel like that would potentially address what got us here today and set us on the right track with the clear-cut consequences of any deviation from that.
Commissioner Green, to our attorneys, a temporary suspension would mean he would have to step down as sheriff, wouldn't it?
No.
Would not.
Not to get too academic, but the sheriff is a constitutional officer who's elected by the people. He's not able, he would not lose his arrest powers, would not lose his law enforcement powers. He would not be entitled to salary supplement. But that's one requirement, prerequisite is to be a post-certified officer. And that does create some re-election problems. If he were to be in a decertified status at the time that the election rolls around, post can't certify his election packet. So those would be the second and third order consequences that.
When was he elected?
September 2022.
So he's not up for
26.
till 2026, which is 18, I guess. Depends on if they do a May primary, August election or, but that would give ample time for him to fix this. And if he hasn't fixed it in that time and it's still in a suspended status, that's of his own doing. That affects his own reelection. There is an opportunity though, if he were to suspend his post status now, he completes all those terms within the 6 months, he's back to full status before even his potential primary opponent. If there is one, I'm not sure of how Grundy's is set up.
Mr. Lane, never get it. I'm like you, ma'am. This all happened before I came on the commission, but was the sheriff involved in the deception? I mean, that's personally, or was it staff that put in the wrong thing and okayed this? I mean, that's a question, because I didn't have, I wasn't here, but that's what I'm gonna be hung up on. If that was him personally being deceptive, I'm not sure how that's any different than any other officer that we bring through these commissions.
There was a Commissioner Beverly, there was a case that, or an instance where the sheriff appeared and there was an issue, I believe, with, I think it was the chief deputy at the time. And he said that the chief deputy had resigned and taken another position. It was a small detail, but worth noting that when the chief deputy was sitting there, the sheriff had testified he's no longer chief deputy. I asked the chief deputy, or the subject to step to the microphone and tell me, what does his shirt say? And it says chief deputy, what was it, whatever his name was. And it's those types of instances that we were like, how would the public know? If you're saying this man's not a chief deputy, but he's wearing a chief deputy shirt with name and rank, and that's kind of what fueled one instance that fueled some of this. But I guess the question before we take a vote would the sheriff enter into a suspension status while he addresses that criteria? And I don't know if we need to take a moment to confirm that.
Well, I'd have to talk to him about it. That's one of the things that we talked about. So certainly the sheriff wants to satisfy your concerns, but let me reiterate that things are not always as clear as they seem to be. I mean, I'm hearing a lot about deception as if it's a proven fact, and it's not a proven fact. And as far as like King goes, the chief deputy, he was the one that did that. The sheriff did not tell him to sign any documents as the chief deputy. The sheriff didn't tell him to wear that shirt. In fact, he came into the commission meeting back in October and he said the reason he wore that shirt was because it was the best shirt he had. He wanted to look the best he could. And again, I would just say on this point, like particularly about King, many of you all are sheriffs and in executive positions, and I don't think it's the post, that the sheriff has authority to put, he could put anybody on patrol or make them the chief deputy or whatever. And I know the commission doesn't want to get involved in micromanaging, but we strongly resist the idea that that he engaged in any deception, particularly with respect to King, because that was really on him, and he's gone. So, I mean, I can talk to the sheriff if it's the wish of the commission to consider a suspension. But I would just, again, and forgive me for, if I've talked too much, but I would urge you all to remember that you have not heard the evidence like in a real hearing. You've basically heard one side of it. And as you all will recall, the sheriff was on the hot seat here and in some cases he was on the hot seat for things that really he didn't even need to be brought before the commission, but he was really on the defensive. And so in all, I just ask the commission to remember that. But I can talk to the sheriff if it's the will of the commission. Y'all just have to, decide what you think is fair and what you think you want to do. But we really strongly disagree with the position. I don't think you can prove, if the proof would stand, that the sheriff was deceptive. But again, we would like to try to satisfy the commission. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Wright, to me right now, it kind of feels appropriate if we take a vote on the motion at hand, and then we have a discussion of whether we can come to an agreement. And then if we can't come to an agreement, then we know our only option at that point will be trial.
I agree. Or we want to take a vote on discussion into that. Given I wasn't here during the time when this event occurred, so I'm kind of playing catch up on kind of there as far as that goes. But it's one of those things that I always will take in like this. I know it can wind up being rough when an elected official takes office and your predecessor is not exactly helpful. I got elected as county mayor in Scott County, and my predecessor basically showed up 5 days to work in August. Fortunately, his secretary stayed, and she was a great help to me. And it's kind of one of those things, walking into some jobs, I will say that you are drinking water from the fire hose, and you're trying to do that. So, I mean, I also take into consideration that the people of Grundy County did wind up voting for this individual. But also, I also take into account of, all the hard work that the Post Commission did and the investigators in light of that. But it's also one of those things that, given the suspension of that, with the agreement that you have now with what legal counsel has wound up saying, that he would be prepared to automatically surrender if anything is in violation of this plea agreement, if you will, then kind of there we are. Because even if you do wind up suspending, by constitutional, now he's in, he'd still be sheriff. I mean, irregardless until now. As far as running for re-election, you need to be careful with that, because if you wind up banning this man right there for suspension like that right there, what if something does wind up happening and there you go and you wind up taking that, and the next thing you know, you got litigation with that. So, I mean, in my personal opinion, for what it's worth, I think to deal with that added 6 month, the surrender being automatic, should there be a violation of that? To me, I think that's acceptable for what information that I do know on this, but that's just my 2 cents on that. And thank you for your time.
So just to understand that there's a motion to agree with the proposal, and we have a second. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All in favor? With agreed order. Say aye.
Could we do a roll call?
Yeah, roll call.
Commissioner Beverly,
No.
Commissioner Green,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jeffries,
Jeffers,
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Parker,
Abstain.
Commissioner Lacy, Wilbur,
No.
Commissioner Wright,
No.
the vote carries.
The chair.
Did you vote?
I did. My apologies. Aye.
How would the department like to proceed?
Your Honor, with the added term of that if he does not comply, he won't maintain the certification, since there has been a vote in the affirmative, we would like to voluntarily dismiss the notice of hearing charges against Mr. Gunter, and we will get that drafted and signed and filed with ACADIS and with with the APD as well.
I believe we would only need the chair's signature on that and then filed with APD thereafter.
Yes. Okay. Thank you all. With that, this concludes the matter and we are adjourned.
Thank you.